Frostbitten, without food or water, Tetsu Shiohara kept pushing toward the peak of Mount Fuji. He streamed his unauthorized climb live until he slipped at over 3,700 meters. The feed spiraled into chaos, flickering images and sounds, and then silence. Tetsu had summited Fuji before, but this time, he went with zero preparation. Did he really risk his life that recklessly? Or was there more to this story than meets the eye? What you're about to hear is pretty intense, so viewer discretion is advised. It's like Tetsu was cursed from a young age. He went to school in the US, yet back in Japan, he failed the bar exam twice, blocking him from a decent career. Stuck in a cycle of low-paying jobs, he had to borrow money from his parents. Years passed, but nothing improved. Even by the time he was 40, he was unemployed, without a family or even friends. Tetsu felt like a disgrace. He lived alone on Japan's smallest major island in a tiny apartment, socially isolated and lonely. However, in 2015, Tetsu discovered streaming. That was 4 years before the disaster he could never have imagined. Tetsu began broadcasting his simple life online, gaining his first viewers. They encouraged him to get outside more and be socially active, and eventually, he met a woman, Sodden, who was a regular viewer. In 2017, she suggested they climb the legendary Mount Fuji together, and he agreed. That summer, they made it to the summit, and it seemed like things might turn around for Tetsu. Yet his life didn't improve. He faced relentless criticism online for being a ronin, a social failure, as it's often put in Japan. And Sodden, for unknown reasons, stopped inviting him to meet up, even though she continued chatting with him on his streams. Nevertheless, Tetsu developed a passion for trekking and began climbing Fuji annually. In 2019, he climbed the mountain just after the official season ended on September 7th, only days before the first snow. A month later, while streaming, one viewer commented that they wanted to see the view from Fuji in winter. Tetsu paused. Even though he had summited 3 times in the warm season, a winter ascent was different and required mountaineering skills he didn't have. Plus, climbing after September wasn't officially allowed. Despite everything, he took up the challenge, bent on showing his audience Fuji in the winter. This was 22 days before the accident. Mount Fuji, an active stratovolcano on Japan's largest island, Honshu, rises 3,776 meters above sea level. It's Japan's tallest mountain and a world-famous tourist spot. Fuji's infrastructure is top-notch, and even beginners can reach the summit. There are 4 official routes of varying difficulty, with Yoshida as the easiest, featuring 10 stations and 18 mountain huts, equipped for safety and comfort. However, it's crucial to follow certain rules. Wear trekking clothes and proper shoes, bring poles, hike slowly, stay hydrated, and, most importantly, climb only in the designated season, from July to mid-September. Then, the summit is snow-free, with mild and manageable weather. Outside this window, as Tetsu planned his climb, Fuji is buried under meters of snow. Temperatures plummet below freezing, rains coat jagged rocks in ice, and fierce winds make it unwelcoming. Only certified climbers are allowed winter ascents, requiring specialized gear and skills. Even with all the precautions, the dangers of Fuji are always there. Steep slopes, sharp volcanic rock, and sudden landslides, all covered in thick clouds. For instance, in 1954, a rockfall injured 16 and trapped 15 people alive. In 1970, one claimed the lives of 31 people and injured 72, many of them students on a school trip. Yet this isn't the only lethal danger that lurks for tourists on Fuji. Another hazard is the unpredictable weather. Sudden storms bring rain and ferocious winds, making it easy to slip, sustain injuries, or freeze. In 1972, an abrupt storm injured 63 climbers and claimed the lives of 14. And though no similar mass tragedies have happened since, about 10 people pass away on Fuji each season. Most are unprepared, suffering from hypothermia and altitude sickness. The thin air at Fuji's summit deprives the body of oxygen, causing headaches, nausea, dizziness, and fatigue. Even Japan's guardian spirit, the goddess Sakyahime, who is believed to watch over Fuji, couldn't protect Tetsu from what was coming, as he still decided to climb the mountain in almost winter conditions. The top was already covered with snow, with the temperature dropping noticeably. Nonetheless, he set out, convinced he wouldn't just survive, but wouldn't even feel the cold. On October 28th, early in the morning, about 8 hours 30 minutes before the tragedy, Tetsu headed for Fuji. Perhaps he had a premonition of some kind as the doubts started to creep in on the way to the top. When he noticed he was the last one left on the bus to the mountain's base, he felt an overwhelming fear. Suddenly weakened, Tetsu had this nagging desire to go home. Yet, he persisted, stepping off at the 5th station of Yoshida Trail, starting his stream, and talking to viewers about his plans. With only 4 hours left before the tragedy, viewers already started worrying. Tetsu had only a phone, a power bank, trekking poles, and gloves that were so low quality that they tore as he put them on. He wore light sneakers, a fleece jacket, and casual pants. His first complaint on the stream was that his ears were freezing, likely from a poor quality hat or even no hat at all. Viewers found his behavior strange. He'd had a month to prepare, yet he came so unready. Was he overly confident? Or had he underestimated the mountain? Or was something else going on? With 3 hours and 48 minutes left, he stepped onto the Yoshida Trail, showed a no entry sign, and walked right past it. Chatting nonstop with viewers, he dismissed concerns, joking that he wasn't about to lose his life on the mountain. Then, just 30 minutes into the climb, he mentioned he was hungry but left his energy bar at home to carry less. This odd remark shocked his viewers. Could he really have set off on a 10-hour trek without food? It turned out he did. Worse, he hadn't even brought water, just some cold green tea. His actions over the next hour stirred even more anxiety. He ignored another no entry sign and claimed he'd shortened the climb from 10 hours to 6, meaning he'd have to move faster with little rest. Viewers warned him this could cause altitude sickness, but Tetsu replied he wanted to get there fast before the evening chill. This still meant he'd be descending in darkness, and he hadn't brought a flashlight. Maybe he thought his phone light would suffice. But the path ahead was filled with landslides because of the unstable rock washed away by the rains. Just one misstep, especially with low visibility, could prove fatal. Strangely, Tetsu was aware of all the dangers. During the stream, he repeatedly acknowledged his lack of equipment and admitted it was too challenging. Instead of turning back, he joked again that he tried not to die, and if he did, at least he wouldn't know it, unlike his viewers. Tetsu's followers weren't laughing though. They began to wonder if he'd come to the mountain unprepared on purpose to end his journey there. You see, at that point, everyone knew he had stage 4 cancer with only a 7% survival chance. In a way, he was standing at death's edge long before this climb. Given his life's circumstances, some thought he might feel he had nothing left to lose, or perhaps he just wanted one last intense experience. Or maybe he just had no strength to fight left in him.
いっぱいいるっしょ、実は。
3 hours and 23 minutes before the tragedy, Tetsu, breathing heavily, reached the first hut, only to find it predictably locked. There was no help in sight. The whole time, he was almost non-stop chatting with viewers, which only made him more short of breath. A female voice from the AI would read the viewers' comments aloud to him. However, 2 hours and 50 minutes before disaster struck, Tetsu suddenly heard an actual voice.
Hi, how you doing?
2 tourists resting near the 7th station asked if he was headed to the summit. He replied yes and asked if they were going too. Their answer was unsettling. Only 5 hours of daylight remained, and he was still 1,000 meters from the top. The tourists added that they weren't equipped for such a climb, so they just wished him luck.
Wish you good luck. Yeah, thanks.
Which he desperately needed. The further he went, the steeper the slope became, with more and more snow covering it. Just 1 hour and 11 minutes before the tragedy, Tetsu could no longer see the trail. Only deep prints remained in the high snow. Ice crust had formed on top, and Tetsu complained about constantly slipping on it. Viewers then asked if he had brought an ice axe and crampons. He admitted to his shocked followers that he had forgotten them. The deal is that on the steep, snow-covered slopes of Mount Fuji, gear is absolutely crucial. Without it, stopping a slide or saving himself from a fall would be impossible. So, could Tetsu really have forgotten such life-saving equipment if he knew its importance and planned a safe journey? Would he also have skipped food if he had read that climbers burn up to 700 calories per hour? And what about his parents, who were also watching his wild stream? Tetsu didn't care though. He was going to reach the summit no matter what. Yet things only got worse. By Station 8, it was hard for him to speak to the viewers as he struggled to catch his breath. He reached it with 57 minutes to go before the tragedy. But by then, he was behind schedule, risking a descent in complete darkness. Meanwhile, his fingers began to go numb because his thin gloves couldn't protect him from the wind and cold, and the weather was only growing harsher. The sun above Fuji shone brightly, blinding him, yet offered no warmth. Still, Tetsu stubbornly kept moving along the trail until, past Station 8.5, it disappeared entirely. No markers were left, just a steep slope and footprints leading downward. There was nothing to stop Tetsu from falling over the edge, and each step risked sending him plunging into the abyss, and ahead lay even more dangerous terrain. Worse still, he wasn't sure if he was going the right way. What if the person who left the tracks was heading back after hitting a dead end? There was absolutely no shelter here, not even from the brutal wind, let alone a spot to rest if needed. The cold had fully set in. His fingers were almost senseless, and any attempt to warm them were futile. Nevertheless, when he spotted the final station and an untouched path to the summit, Tetsu perked up. He began chatting more with the viewers, including his parents, but they stopped watching the stream soon after. Was Tetsu's burst of energy really a newfound strength? Could hypoxia caused by the rapid altitude change, dehydration, and cold trigger his sudden excitement? Why else would he keep removing his gloves to check his phone, risking frostbite in just 30 minutes under such conditions? He no longer had any chance of descending Fuji before dark, though he could still call for help. Instead, Tetsu chose to continue scrambling up frozen snow mounds to reach the summit, slipping on the icy surface every few minutes but refusing to stop. Although it might look manageable in the video, he was kept from a drop-off by a low-wire fence, which was better than nothing. Just a few dozen meters from the summit, and minutes before the tragedy, Tetsu's energy seemed to wane. He kept repeating how difficult and dangerous it was and complained about the nearly unbearable pain in his frozen fingers. A few meters from the end of the metal fence, Tetsu slipped again. This time, there was a note of panic in his laughter. Suddenly, a female voice warned him, "Don't come." Some viewers saw this as a sign from Sakyo Haimi, the guardian goddess of Mount Fuji. Was it just a comment in the chat read by AI? Or was the goddess really urging Tetsu to stop? Well, he didn't halt one bit, stepping forward and then shocking his viewers by announcing he planned to take a photo right on the edge with his frozen fingers. Then Tetsu slipped and couldn't catch himself. The stream continued as he tumbled down the steep slope toward the mountain's edge, unable to stop himself. 11 horrifying seconds passed, and the camera froze. Stunned viewers waited with bated breath, hoping he would lift the shattered phone and assure them he was okay. But that never happened. Minutes later, they alerted the police of the accident. Tetsu's fate was unknown. Still, even if he survived the fall, he wouldn't last long without warm clothing, water, or food. Rescue operations started almost immediately, yet by the end of the day, Tetsu was nowhere to be found. Helicopters continued to search the summit the next day as the hope of finding him alive quickly faded. Only 47 hours and 10 minutes after the tragedy, a body was found on the mountain, nearly 2 kilometers below the summit, near Station 7. Given the low temperature and the body's condition, it was impossible to determine how long Tetsu might have survived after the fall. Moreover, no one could confirm it was actually him. The face and body were so damaged by the impact that it was unrecognizable. Nothing in his pockets or backpack helped police identify the deceased. Only over 2 weeks after Tetsu Shiohara was reported missing did an investigation confirm that it was indeed his body found on Fuji's slopes. The following year, Tetsu was awarded the Darwin Award for the dumbest death by accident. Mind you, he was the first Japanese to receive this satirical prize. Yet many disagree with the idea that Tetsu's death was stupid in any way. He may have lived recklessly, facing a terminal illness, but he was no fool. What if he didn't want to wait to fade away from cancer and decided to take matters into his own hands? This perspective makes the story even more tragic. In the end, we may never know the truth.